You hold them all in your see a smile, the brightest note you ever known. In the ditch, found your path, climbing still, the wreckage all around your dreams. Grass is green where they lay in the sun, the skin feed another day. Rode it out, made a breath, force the words, something that your eyes can't see. I feel guilt when I say I love you, 'cause I say it so often, but I hope you believe. No matter how dopey or crazy you talk, you gotta keep right by, it doesn't matter at all. You lit me up, don't break me down. You lit me up, don't break me down. Come to me in my new age life, I got so damn used to all this black and white. Please share all of your thoughts on the day. I hope it wasn't so bad, I know it rained. You're building me up, don't break me down. Building me up, don't break me down. Let it be known, let it die the way to keep from me. Let it be known, I would hide down the way to keep from me.
So welcome to our digital presentation of our CCHM Speaker Series event. This talk is part of our yearly Celebrate Main Street initiative. So tonight we're celebrating the history of Camas and its historic downtown. So we're really excited to have you join us to look through and see all of this wonderful history about this Southwest Washington city. And we want to thank our generous sponsor, which one is the Downtown Camas Association. They've joined us as a sponsor for tonight's talk and also helped us put together this program. So we're really thankful for that. We also want to thank another generous sponsor, Wager Audio. Without Wager Audio, this digital feed would not be possible. And if you need assistance with digital communications or events, definitely reach out to Wager Audio. Additionally, we want to thank the Historic Preservation Commission of Clark County. Their support year in and year out has been vital to help make our speaker series program happen. And this year's support has allowed us to bring these talks to you digitally and free of charge. So please, please, please thank them for that. Another thing that we want to mention is that we were supposed to be at the Liberty Theater tonight. And unfortunately, we're still streaming our talks digitally because we want to make sure that we're promoting a safe start back for everything to reopen. And so as a result, we want to still support the Liberty because it's a historic building in downtown Camas that definitely deserves that support. So we provided a link that you can click on in the comments here that will allow you to be able to donate, and we will end up donating those funds to the Liberty Theater. In addition, we will let you know we're really excited and hope that phase 3 will happen soon enough. And when that happens, we'd love to see you come back in the museum. And just so you know, what we still have up at the moment is History of Brewing is one of the exhibits. And we want to thank our sponsors. That's our newest exhibit that we've put up. And we want to thank our sponsors for that, which are Great Western Malting, Barlow's Public House, and Bader Beer, Wine, and Supply. Now, additionally, we're working on another exhibit right now, which is called Her Story, Founders, Leaders, and Visionaries. And this is in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. And we want to thank the City of Vancouver and Mayor Anne McInerney-Ogle for being our corporate sponsors. And we also want to thank all of our Yellow Rose sponsors that have helped us out with donations to help make this exhibit possible. And we're really excited and looking forward to opening that on August 21st. In addition to that, we'll still have our Music, Movement, and Sound exhibit up and our Currents of Progress exhibits up. And so we're really, really excited to open back up. But until then, we'll continue to connect with you digitally. So one of the special things for tonight's talk that we were able to do was we were able to expand a little bit more thanks to the support from the Camas Downtown, or for the Downtown Camas Association. And so as a result, we ended up doing a Camas trivia quiz. And so we taped this a little while back with some people from the Downtown Association and people of fame from Camas. So without further ado, please enjoy our Camas quiz game.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to this special speaker series quiz show. We normally do a quiz show for History on Tap, but for this one speaker series, we're going to be doing a quiz show on Camas history. So what we're going to have is we're going to give our contestants multiple choice questions regarding Camas and paper mill history, and then they're going to raise their hand to answer, and then we'll see what answers they have. And I want to introduce, we have an amazing panel of guests here for this quiz. We have Nan Henriksen, former mayor of the city of Camas. Nan, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been doing recently?
Well, recently I've been really busy with Camas Washougal Rotary and getting people ready to vote for Charter Review Commission, which I'm not running for. I'm just encouraging people to get interested in that.
Excellent. Thank you for doing that. So Barry, we have Barry Lutz from Lutz Hardware. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on down at the hardware store these days?
Well, the hardware store is still busy right now. They've been open during the pandemic, but myself personally, I'm looking forward to taking a nap. I've been kind of homebound for quite a while here. Finally got a haircut. Things are perking up a little bit, and I'm anxious to come in second or third in this contest here. Ready to-
That's great to hear. And then we have Marquita Call from Camas Gallery. What's going on down at Camas Gallery right now?
Absolutely nothing for 3 months. And so I'm delighted to be here, and it's great to be open again. And we love Camas. And you did pick 3 people that really love Camas. Great job, Brad.
Awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started with our quiz. So I'm going to ask our first question. Remember, again, this is multiple choice, so raise your hands when you want to answer. So our first question here is, the town site of Camas was laid out in what year? A, 1825, B, 1903, C, 1883, or D, 1956? Oh, Barry, you were first.
C, 1883.
You are correct. Camas was laid out in 1883. All right. Our second question. This is another early Camas question. The first store in Camas was opened by A, Henry Pittock, B, Hugh McMaster, C, Aeneas McMaster, or D, Charles Farrell?
Oh, that's tough.
Marquita. Were you answering, Marquita?
B?
Nope, B is not correct. Anyone else like to try and answer?
Why not?
Nan.
C.
That is correct. The first store in Camas was opened by Aeneas McMaster. And Marquita, you should know that Hugh McMaster was Aeneas McMaster's son. So that was a trick question. So I'm a terrible person. I'm sorry.
Bad boy. Don't be doing things like that to us.
These are
See,
hard.
this is supposed to be fun. See, I'm making this difficult. So question number 3. Camas has not always been called Camas. What was its earlier name? A. Oh, okay. All right. You're flying blind. Barry, you raised first.
Well, I don't. It's Lacamas, Lacamas.
That is correct. It was Lacamas, some people say. And oh man, I put a lot of work into those multiple choice names, and now the world will never know. They'll never know.
Well, here's my question, Brad. Here's my question: is any quiz show I watch, and I watch a lot of them, I listen to all the questions, and then we get to answer. I knew that too, but I thought we needed to go through A, B, C, or D. So I would reprimand Nan and Barry and give me the win.
Obviously, you know how to play the.
Oh, hold on. Let me buzz into my judge. I'll allow it. Barry, you've lost the point, and I'm giving that one to Marquita. All right. Okay. So we have right now. You're all tied. Right now, 3-1 apiece. So
okay, are we going to wait till all questions are asked?
This time we will.
We are whiny.
Okay.
So our next question number 4. In what year did Camas incorporate as a city? A, 1857, B, 1906, C, 1951, or D, 1909? Marquita.
B.
That is correct. Camas incorporated in 1906.
Oh, that wasn't right. You said that. Okay. Because that's what I thought it was, but I thought it had a different letter. So there you go. I would have been out of luck anyway. Congratulations, Marquita.
Oh, hey, thank you. I have to win at something now.
Please don't.
And now she's pulling into the lead. So our next question here, number 5. What statewide group is reported to have started in Camas? A, the Dairy Farmers of Washington. B, the Washington State Grange. C, the Washington State Novelty Paper Collectors Club. Or D, the Washington State Red Raspberry Commission. Oh, Marquita's already got her hand up.
A.
What's your answer? The Washington Dairy Farmers?
Yes.
No, that is not correct.
Oh, yay!
Man.
I'll try B.
B is correct. It is said that the Washington State Grange was started in Camas. Congratulations. That's a tough one. I just learned that one myself.
Going to challenge that one or not?
So
contest it, Barry. Contest it.
No? All right.
Contested. I thought you guys would get a kick out of the Washington State Novelty Paper Collectors Club.
That was very good.
Yeah.
Very
I made that one up. It's not real. So if you want to start that, we can. So our next question is number 6. In 1892, it was reported that burglars broke into the McMaster's and Company store. During the robbery, they got away with A, Christmas tree, B, a tub of crawfish tails, C, $1,110, or D, a pallet of toilet paper.
All of the above.
Nan.
I'll try D.
D, a pallet of toilet paper. That is unfortunately not our answer. Anyone else want to take a shot? Marquita.
1. A.
A Christmas tree?
Yeah.
Nope, that is not our answer either.
Okay, Barry, bring it home.
I got a 50-50 chance. I'm going with B. I like
B,
crawdad.
The crawdad tails? That is also not our answer.
The crawdad tail was $100.
Yeah, they got away with they got away with $1,110.
Wow, that's a lot of money back then.
That was quite a bit of money. So our next question, in what year is it reported that the Lacamas Post, forerunner to the Post Record, was started? A, 1915, B, 1883, C, 1908, or D, 1957? Barry.
B. And I have no idea.
B or D?
C is Charlie. C, Charlie.
Oh, C, Charlie. Yes, you are correct. 1908 is the year.
Nice job, Barry. Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I read the paper.
So
I took the first issue too.
took the first issue.
I was a small boy.
So question number 8. What was the original name of Camas's famed Liberty Theater? A, Farrell's Picture House. B, McMaster's Auditorium. C, the Granada Theater. Or D, Papermaker Movie Palace. Looks like Barry was waving first.
Granada.
The Granada Theater. You are correct, Barry. It was the Granada Theater.
Take
All
that,
right.
everybody.
In 1933, Camas threw a really big celebration to commemorate its 50th anniversary as a city. What was the name of this celebration? A, Camas Days. B, the Wild Spree of 83. C, Piddock Fest. Or D, the Camas-tastic, fantastic, bombastic, extravagant 50th celebration. Barry.
I go with B, as in boy.
B, as in the Wild Spree of 83?
Yes.
Yep.
You
That's
are
it.
correct. That is
I
the
know.
name.
I was there too.
We knew it too, Barry. Yep.
Yeah, darn it.
Don't worry, girls. I'm retiring after this show, so you might have a chance.
So question 10. In 1940, Camas held the Camas Paper Festival and crowned Sally Stenham as Queen of the events. Her royal title was A, Queen Spruce. B, Hemlock Queen. C, Queen Papyrus. Or D, Queen Camasonia. Marquita.
Oh,
I have to go with D.
D, Queen Camasonia?
Yeah.
That is not the correct answer. Nan.
I go with C.
C, Queen Papyrus? That is the correct answer. She was crowned as Queen Papyrus.
congratulations.
Way to go, Nan. That was brilliant.
All right, we got one last question. This is our final question right now.
Oh, wow.
Now, Camas has a history with great artists. And in the 1930s, L. Lawrence Pratt decided to immortalize the paper mill with a work of art. Mr. Pratt produced A, sculpture of a 15-foot tall roll of toilet paper. B, a 15-minute musical ballad about Henry Piddock's journey to create a paper mill in the city. C, a 3-act play about the paper process from the perspective of a tree. Or D, 20 sonnets titled A Saga of a Paper Mill. Man,
I'll go with D.
you're going to
That's
go
a
with
good
D? The 20
Yeah.
sonnets? That is the correct answer. We just found that out last week. He wrote 20 sonnets. Plus, there is another book of sonnets that's even more.
I had never heard of that, though. That sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's actually through Amazon right now is being mailed to me. So I will have a copy of that book pretty soon. So I'm pretty excited.
Wow.
So it looks like now tallying up that Nan and Barry are both tied. So, so it looks like we have two winners this evening. I don't have a tiebreaker question. And Marquita, thank you so much for also participating.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been a great time.
So welcome back, and that was really fun to do, and they were really good sports with this. So another fun extra that we were able to do for this program, thanks to support from the Downtown Camas Association, was to reach out to Camas historian Virginia Warren. I was able to connect with her via Zoom, and we were able to talk about both her life and some aspects of Camas history she wants everyone to know. So let's take a look at what Virginia had to tell us. All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone to our next segment. We have Miss Virginia Warren here, who is the Camas historian. And I want to thank you so much for joining us for our program tonight. And you are a lifelong Camas resident, and you are pretty much the historian of Camas. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are and your connection to Camas.
Okay. I came to Camas. I was born in 1925 in Haines, Oregon. Haines is a little town about 11 miles from Baker City, Oregon. And my folks sold everything on the ranch and had a big sale in 1925. And they sold pigs and mattresses and beddings and cows and everything like that. And they moved out to Camas because it was after the Depression, and my dad needed work. It was getting pretty rough on the farms and different things back everywhere, actually. And they loaded us children in the back seat, and Dad had a trunk on the back of the car and 2 suitcases on the side, and all of our belongings that we owned in the world. We came to Camas because he had relatives in Camas. 2 weeks, and Dad was trying to get on at the mill. He'd stand in line and wait all day to get a job. Once you got a job and you got work, you felt that you could get on full time, and you worked shift work, 3 shifts at the mill at that time. Then we somehow, I don't know how much Dad got from the farm and all the things he sold on the farm, but they bought this old 2-story house out on 3rd Avenue. And Dad fixed it up and put a bedroom on and a big old porch so Mother could wash the clothes. And he made screens for it so it would be nice in the summer. And then in the winter, he made plastic screens, as I would call them. And of course, we didn't have a refrigerator. And so we took our, Dad had a cow, and he and Mother milked the cow, and he'd take the milk but I lived in that house until I married my first husband, Bob Holland from Vancouver. And but anyway, I started school when I was, let's see, I was probably 5 or 6, and started Central School, where the nursing home is now up on the hill, and then I went to Camas Junior High School and Camas Junior High School, and then Camas High School. Camas used to be a self-sustaining town, and what I mean by that is we had everything in town that we needed. We didn't have to go to Vancouver. We didn't have to go to Portland. We had dress shops, and we had men's stores. And we had a tailor. Ivor Gray was our tailor, and he lived in a little room that was on the backside of the hotel, the old hotel. And it was a fantastic little town, and we knew all the people that ran the stores. We knew all the people that had the grocery stores. There were three drugstores, I think 3 or 4 grocery stores. Mickey Suarez was one of the biggest. We had 4 drugstores. We had the Economy, which is George Hendrickson, Nan Hendrickson's dad, and Ray Batchelder, who ran the one that I worked in. And we had a Rexall drugstore right across from the mill. And we just had everything we needed. We also had a couple furniture stores, Stollers and Swanks. We had a mortuary on 3rd, which is still there. It was Swanks at the time. I don't know what it's called now. And let's see, we had grocery stores, and you know, we just had everything we needed. It was a nice place to raise my 3 sons, and you just knew everybody, and I guess that's why I'm so close to Camas now. A lot of new people have moved in there, and I don't know them, of course, but it was a great place. You just knew everybody, and you know, your kids couldn't really get into too much trouble because they couldn't go squirreling around the corners when they learned to drive, because I knew all the guys at the service stations, and before they got home, I knew about it. So that's the way it is. Camas is not the same little town it used to be, but it's still a great town. I will always be a Camas girl. I grew up in Camas, lived there forever and ever, and I love Camas and what it used to be and what it has become.
What are a few pieces of Camas history that you feel everyone in Clark County should know?
Okay. The mill was the largest specialty paper mill in the world, and I think everybody should know that. We had 3,000 people working in that mill at one time. Now, that's hard to imagine, This was before the war, when it was Crown Zellerback. And it was before the war and during the war. And people were coming to work in the shipyards, at the Kaiser shipyards in Vancouver, and the paper mill. It was also after the Depression, so, people really needed the work. Actually, the paper mill sent recruiters down south to recruit people to work in the mill. And then, of course, they found out they could make probably more money in the shipyards, so they worked in the shipyards too. But it was that time of year, and we were the largest specialty paper mill in the world. Now, that's a big statement, but I do remember that the mill had maybe it's in one of my scrapbooks, the mill had a great big world picture, and around it, it had like a piece of paper that was wrapped around the world. And so let's see, those are important things to know. And how the mill got started, and I must tell you this is very important. How the mill got started was Mr. Pittock, who owned the paper, the Oregonian newspaper in Portland, felt that Oregon City, who also had a small paper mill in Oregon City by the falls, they didn't make large enough paper sheets for him to print his newspaper in. And so he thought, I'll just build a mill of my own. And of course, he had a lot of money. And so anyway, he began to look along the Columbia River, and he looked in Vancouver, and he came up along the Columbia River and discovered when he got to Camas, of course, at that time, it was all forest. It was all forest, and a few Indians there, but not very many people. And let's see, what else could I? Oh, it was all forest, and then they had 3 lakes, and the Washable River, and the Columbia River. So those were the things that he needed to make paper. You always have to have water to make paper. So that's why he said, well, this is an ideal place. And of course, all the lumber and the trees that were on the property was ideal, because he had to have lumber to build the mill. He had lumber to build little houses for people. If you look along 3rd Street where Safeway is now, it's all torn down by Safeway, but there were little tiny houses, very small houses along 3rd Avenue, and a lot of them are still there. And those were built for mill people, so they would have a place to live when they came to work in the mill. After all, if he was going to hire people, he had to have a place for them to live. And if you will drive sometime and look up on 6th Street and 5th Street, you will find that the houses are a little bit bigger up there. And they're bigger because they were made for the superintendents and the guys that had the better jobs in the mill. Now, if you come down on Garfield Street, we call it the High School Hills at that time. Now the high school has moved out in the country, but that was a high school hill. We used to walk up and down that hill. Right at the bottom of the second hill, right at the bottom of the hill, you will see this on the right-hand side going up. You will see this beautiful white home, big white home. And that was the mill manager's house. Now, they built that house. Let's see, I forgot the date of that. I was going to remember that too. But the mill built that house for all the managers that came to work in the mill. If you came to work in the mill, you always had a place to live. It was the mill manager's house. At one time, they did not charge rent. Now, can you believe that? But at one time, they did not charge rent. It was just later years that they charged rent. And I did talk to, he's still living, let's see, can't remember his name. Anyway, I knew them both well, he and his wife, very nice people. So I asked him when he was still living if he had to pay rent while he lived there. And he says, oh, yes, we did. we paid $50 a month, and I thought, holy cow, what's $50? You know, of course, that time I guess it was a lot of money. And also the mill had gardeners. You know, they used to keep the yards up really nice, the property and whatnot around the mill, and they would send them up to the mill manager's house to mow the grass and whatnot. They didn't have to do all that, but later years, of course, they did. The Ledbetter place out at the lake. Mr. Piddock built that home for his son Fred, who married a Ledbetter girl, and it's still in the Ledbetter name because of the marriage and whatnot. And it's been years and years. And the mill, you know, bought 600 and some acres when they first came to Camas. So they bought all of the property in Camas, all of the property around the lake. And so I think that's really important. But can you imagine Mr. Ledbetter? He was from Portland, of course, and owned the paper mill and the mill and all the property at that time out of the lake. But anyway, so let's see, what else can I tell you about Camas? We had a big bag factory as you come into town, right as you come down the hill to the right, there's big tanks there now. We had a big bag factory. We made every bag there ever was. We made from candy bags to coal bags and potato bags and grocery bags. We just made every bag there was. We had the bag factory was one of the largest, and then we had the converting plant, and but we made every kind of paper you'd ever want to make, and so that's the way it was. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you, and it's very important history. The Downtown Hotel, which is on 4th Street, it's now the Camas Hotel. For years and years, it was a commercial hotel. And that is the oldest hotel in Clark County. Now, Mr. Hines came here from Germany. Mr. Hines had he eventually had 2 daughters and a son. And Albert was in my class at school. But he came here to Portland, and how he did that, I don't know. He was amphibian driver, I believe, in the German army. And how he came to America, I don't know, but he came to Portland, and somehow Mr. Hines heard that there was work in the mill at Camas. And so he came over to investigate. This came over to see what was going on. And so he bought property over here, right exactly where his hotel is. It was a stable delivery thing at the time. He bought the property. But he bought the property and built the mill because he knew the Camas mill was, the Camas mill was progressing. And there was money to be made, so he bought the property. And the oldest store in town would be, I would say, Runyon's. It's in the 4th generation. Debbie, the great-granddaughter, I guess it would be, her grandfather had a store down the street just a little ways. And then when her grandparents, Emerson and his wife, had the jewelry store. They had it for years. They moved it up where it is right now. And then Paul and Barbara Runyon, who would be Emerson's son. And by the way, Barbara is also a Camas lady. They had the store for quite a while, and then years later, the girls took over. But that's probably the oldest store still open in Camas.
So one other question I had for you is, what makes Downtown Camas so special today?
what makes Downtown Camas so special today is that the merchants have all stuck together, and it is, they're kind of specialty stores now. There's a lot of specialty stores that we didn't have in those days. You know, we had grocery stores, we had a laundry, and we had drugstores and whatnot. But also, Carrie Schulstead is there. And I think if it hadn't been for Carrie Schulstead, that the downtown wouldn't be what it is now, because she's a great gal and got a really great head on her. And she's made a lot of things possible. She's pushed forward and she hasn't let people, you know, be negative and not try to, you know, do things. But, you know, Carrie has, I'm not saying she's done it alone, because Marquita Guyani, her name is Hall now, I believe, but her dad had the lake store out at the lake years and years ago. And all the merchants that are still there have done an awful lot to keep the downtown area going. And I just think it's wonderful. Oh, so there you are. So that's about how much I know.
So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today and to talk about Camas history. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for sharing. We want to thank Virginia again for taking the time to interview. That was really great. And we're looking forward to finding out more history from Virginia in the future. So now, welcome to tonight's talk about Camas and its historic downtown. So in this talk, we're going to look at the story of Camas, get some insight into some of the history we've recently uncovered, and talk about many of these stories, how they connect to some buildings in downtown Camas today. Now, long before Camas could be called a township in the early 1880s, the area was an active place for the people of the Southwest Washington Native Nations. And from time memoriam, the nations would gather, hunt, and fish in the general area and beyond. And Camas, or Quamash, was and is a prominent blue flower that would grow in the local region. It was a food staple for many Native nations. It's often roasted and produces a sweet flavor like that of kind of like a sweet potato. And the Camas flower does continue to act as this connection between the city's namesake and its role as a food staple for Southwest Washington Native nations. Now, for more than a century, Camas has also made its name in the paper industry. It started with the Camas Colony Company in the early 1880s up to Georgia Pacific Paper Company today, still operating the mill. And so Camas has also expanded. The success of the Camas paper industry has also drawn significant investment from high-tech firms and others, keeping the city on the cutting edge while it still honors its past and its historic downtown, but looks to the future in so many different ways. And downtown Camas plays a really central role in what makes Camas Camas. And so for part of the story that we want to look at is we're actually going to go before that, the Camas Colony Company. So it was arriving around in the area around 1846. Jacob T. Hunsaker and his wife Emily initiated actually the first area's European-style commerce, which was a sawmill. Now, unfortunately, the sawmill would be destroyed during a forest fire in 1849, and followed by a second forest fire in 1851 would consume a second mill. So he ended up leaving. And in 1852, an individual by last name Maxim with his spouse Arabella came to the general area, and they also constructed a sawmill in an effort to establish themselves and possibly a community. But it would suffer the same fate as the first two, shortly burning down afterwards. So approximately for 3 decades, the area of Camas would remain pretty without any significant growth. And this was until the settlement of Victor Zenefrius Bartholome, in 1879, he filed a homestead claim in the area. And although there were certainly other claims in the area, even including Bartholome's in-laws, in the 1880 census for the territory, the area was described as mountainous country, no villages, Clark County. So eventually this did change. In 1883, Oregon publisher Henry Pittock and associates sought land near Camas, near the lake, to start producing a newspaper for his paper, The Oregonian. and Pittock needed plenty of water to power the paper-making machines, and he found it in the lakes of the Lacamas region. And so they called it the Lacamas Colony Company, or Camas Colony Company, and they laid out the town site of Camas for their new paper mill. And the company ended up purchasing about 3,000 acres of land stretching from the banks of the Columbia River and the Camas Slough to the lake, more than about a mile to the north of the river there. And eventually, the Camas Colony Company filed a plat for the city, and they set aside 60 blocks for a new town, with the mill set at the west end of this new city. Now, an important early task was to raise the level of Lacamas Lake by building 3 dams at its southern end. And a sawmill was also built near the first of these dams to supply lumber, which would then build the mill, but also it was going to help to build the town. Now, sources indicate that more than about 100 Chinese laborers were hired, and many of these who had just completed work on the Northern Pacific Railroad were hired to clear land and build the primary aqueduct, which this would stretch more than 7,000 feet long and 8 feet wide and 7 feet high. It was during this same period as this was all developing that Aeneas McMaster opened the first general store. And so shortly after he opened this first store, he realized he was going to outstrip its capacity and built a larger outlet, and they called it a pioneer store. That's what it was called at the time. And so on September 10th, 1889, something happened really important inside that. In the upper floor of that store that made history in Washington State, a group got together and they actually started the Washington State Grange. And it was designed to be a nonpartisan organization aimed at improving the quality of life for Washington residents. And this organization still exists to this day. So Camas is known as the home of the Washington State Grange. So in 1884, it brought more activity to this young town. Camas decided to expand its economic potential. And during this period, there was a construction of 3 general stores, a meat market, a bakery and restaurant, a blacksmith, and a stables. And by the end of 1884, Camas's population had grown to, wait for it, 153 residents. And they would end up building their first school and post office around this time also. And by 1885, the township of Camas had almost doubled its population, and the city was starting to acquire more land to try to keep up with this influx of people. Now, it wasn't exactly a perfect start for the mill. The original mill ended up burning down, and one of the places where we noted on this was the Clark County historian Pat Gelada wrote a book about Camas, and she said, quote, "The paper mill burned to the ground on a cold November night in 1886. Approximately 105 tons of paper went up, and 1,100 tons of raw material is believed to have been lost in this fire." She noted further that Camas rolled up its sleeves and rebuilt it in 6 months. Now, it continued to grow during this time, and around the turn of the century, a merger occurred between the Columbia River Paper Company at Camas and the Crown Paper Company at Oregon City. And this created the Crown Columbia Paper Company. And this would expand its capacity and size through the early part of the 20th century. And what this did was continue to foster growth in the city of Camas during this time and really it continued to make sure the mill was a significant piece. And that growth for settlement eventually around the turn of the century became official for Camas when it was incorporated. So on June 2nd, 1906, by a vote of 72-19, Camas became a city. And its first mayor was J.J. Harrington, and he was, alongside him was Rufus Blair and C.W. Warren, who served as the city marshals in secession. Blair didn't last very long for some reason. And around that same time in 1908, Camas's newspaper was founded as the Camas Post. And there was a lot happening during this time. And here is actually a photo of the first graduating class at Camas High School. And this is dated 1911. So in 1914, the Willamette and Crown Columbia Company joined their companies together to create the Crown Willamette Paper Company. And the growth of Camas's municipality, continued, and the growth that they had came from lessons learned, because the forest fires that had plagued the early settlement demanded a better source of safety and control. And by 1918, the city had actually installed a privately owned water line from Dead Lake, which is now known as Fallen Leaf Lake, to help feed the horse-drawn hose cart and water buckets located in a barn at 4th and Cedar. And this was sufficient until a fire in 1923 destroyed most of downtown Camas between Birch and Cedar. And this kept pushing for the development of the city's first volunteer fire department. And within a year, the fire department had acquired a 50-gallon soda acid chemical truck to help aid in fire protection. And so when we think about this, the downtown that we see today is greatly shaped by this 1923 fire. Now, also in the early 1920s, and again, this is noted in Pat Gelada's book, that the first link to the North Bank Highway between Camas and Vancouver opened. And she elaborated by saying, quote, "Scores of people from Portland and Vancouver poured into town. And during this same time, the mill opened a new craft paper mill." And the company noted, quote from the company, "While it has a tendency at times to admitting an unsavory odor, it has a promising future in the commercial paper field." And that did come to become true. It did bring great economic growth and greater economic growth to the city. And Gelada also notes in her writing, quote, "For many years in Camas, it was referred to as the smell of money." And I can say, as someone growing up in the area and going to Camas High School myself, I can agree that quote is true. People did say that. So the city continued to expand, and the key symbol of this moment in this expansion in the 20s was the Granada Theater, which eventually would be renamed the Liberty Theater. So hint, hint, donate. And in the teens and the 20s, Camas was now home to an opera house, a theater, numerous businesses that had a railway connection, highway connection, delivering people and goods back and forth to the town. And so it was just continuing to grow. And then this thriving paper mill, which in 1928, the Zellerbach Corporation, one of the largest companies on the West Coast, acquired the stock in the Crown Willamette Company. And then eventually they merged together, creating the Crown Zellerbach Corporation. Now, Camas worked through the Depression of the 1930s like so many other communities. And we actually found several articles about what was happening in Camas during this time. And so this first article that you can see here is the Camas and Washougal Business and Professional Women's Club at Camas, Washington, will be host for the Southwestern Washington District Conference. And so you see that they were having people come in, and this business and women's professional organization records, we're actually collaborating with Two Rivers Heritage Museum to digitize those this year, and the archives, the digital archives, will be online and free this year for you to be able to look at. Now, another one was from 1931 with the Relief Association. So it says Camas was still $395 under its Camas Relief Association drive goal of $2,000 yesterday. Under the chairmanship of Harry Clapp, 26, members of the Camas First Fire Department have, for the past 2 weeks, given their time to solicitations of money, food, clothing, and fuel. Pledges indicate that the goal may be reached within a few days. A record number of families is being cared for by the association this year. So you can see within the Depression, people were starting to care for each other. And there are more articles. Here's another one which says, "No work, no eat." Camas has established, has been established by the Camas Washougal Association of Unemployed as the basis upon which the organization will function. Bylaws have been adopted which call up on the Relief Association of the two communities not to give aid to those who refuse to work in the two community gardens or cut wood in the unemployed timber tract. 2 10-acre gardens, one here and one in Washougal, are being cultivated and potatoes and other late vegetables planted. The land, seed, and farm equipment have been donated. When the crops are harvested, they will be divided among the needy. And then there's another one here during this Depression era. It's another one right from 1930s. Employment for 15 men for more than 3 weeks has been provided here on the improvement of Woodward Avenue from Evergreen Highway to Tidland Heights. The work will include widening and grading the street and will cost $1,000. And again, we see another article from the same time in the 30s showing what was happening with Camas during the Depression. It says, unemployed to canvas cities. The Camas Association of Unemployed, a jobless group composed of nearly 100 members, has set the week of August 29th to September 3rd for a town-wide house-to-house canvas for food, clothing, bedding, and money contributions. Donations received will be deposited in a distributing station in the old Camas Hotel building, where wives of unemployed will mend garments and a committee of jobless will distribute food and clothing to the needy. In addition to that, there were other things happening. Camas was growing, so there was other things that were happening. We see hot meals coming for children getting hot meals. So here's another interesting article here from 1936. It says, changes in the names of streets finds old timers angry. And it says, Camas is having trouble with its new street names. Recently, the city council passed an ordinance renaming virtually every street and avenue in town to give the streets an alphabetical arrangement and place the avenues in numerical order. But many of the, quote, old timers for whom the old street names held sentiment and historic interest have objected loudly and persistently. So the council has agreed to turn the matter over to the planning council with instructions to draw up a street naming system which will meet with less opposition. Now, it wasn't all trouble in Camas in the 1930s. They also celebrated the 50th anniversary of the city, and they actually called it the Wild Spree of 33. And we can actually see a photo here from that celebration. A big thing was about the men growing beards as they would have worn in 1883. And then in 1936, it also had a brush with a Hollywood actor by the name of Guy Kibbe, who had some family in the Camas area. And now the 1940s, they were also a period of celebration too. We can actually see here a couple of pictures of a young lady and a woman dressed up for the paper festival. And there was actually an article that said here, it says, Old Man Paper plans a party. And it says, Old Man Paper is going to throw a party, and the old man really has something to celebrate. He's 2,000 years old, the oldest honorable industry, and perhaps the most important to the thing we call culture. Old Man Paper appropriately has decided to put on his party at the biggest little town in the Northwest, Camas, Washington, 15 miles east of Vancouver on the Evergreen Highway. For Camas is the site of the world's largest specialty paper mill, the oldest pulp and paper mill in the Northwest, a sort of epitome of the whole industry, which is the second biggest in the Northwest. The festivities will be on July 26th and 27th. And so lots of celebrations, things happening. And the celebration, we're talking about the paper festival, was when they finally bridged over to the 40s. And the 40s also brought a new seat in local government with a new city hall and a center of local self-education, which would be a new library, was established in that decade also. And the paper festival was really popular. And actually, Virginia even mentioned remembering that when I was able to talk with her. And the mill would also pivot to support the war effort in the 1940s and added to its production of rudders and valves. And those would be sent to the Kaiser shipyards in Vancouver. And again, Pat Gelada in her book, quote, she says, they turned them out so quickly that Kaiser announced that they could launch 3 more ships because of the effort of the people of Camas. So Camasonians also pitched in addition to that, and they bought war bonds and also participated in scrap metal and rubber drives. And it was even in this same decade and the next that Edward Tidlin invented, as Renee Carroll Johnston in her book that notes legendary locals of Camas-Washougal area. He invented his air shaft invention, which was a thing that was a roll holding paper mill component. And he would go on to found the Tidland Machine Company, which would eventually become named in 1951 with his son, Robert, who was known as Bob. And over the years, the Tidland Machine Company would grow immensely. It would go from the plant at Camas to plants internationally and would employ nearly 200 people at the Camas plant alone. Now, Camas and the mill continue its growth in the 1950s and 1960s. And this period is what led to the downtown Camas we know today. It started to be understood that the downtown business district had kind of just grown up from the early days without any real planning. So under the leadership of the Chamber of Commerce president, Tom Blair, the Commercial Problems Committee was created. And as the population grew, the city council and the chamber recognized that they needed to have the downtown shopping center of Camas seem to become kind of stale in relation to what was going on. And so in 1964, the city of Camas and the chamber began to implement the Operation Foresight, a four-step process to modernize and grow downtown traffic back into downtown Camas. Now, although modernization was key to Camas's forward progress, it was paramount that the historic Camas remained rooted within the architecture. And so many of the historic buildings and homes in Camas that were designed by or built by John Waffler, and then a few of the striking buildings that were built by Robert Stoller and Charles Farrell and many others, these remain standing and they have a lasting impact on the design of downtown Camas's buildings. And the group of downtown business owners proposed as a part of this new downtown to develop a plan to make downtown Camas not only more beautiful, but nicer to shop and spend time in. And so the proposed improvements included a better layout of parking spaces, trees, flowers, benches, store awnings, gazebos, buried electrical and phone wires, outdoor telephones, and an outdoor sound system. And in 1965, a portion of 4th Avenue housed actually a temporary mock-up of the suggested improvements, which were in place for about 2 months. So residents could basically evaluate and make suggestions. And from what I've seen, this was a hit with residents. They did a survey and people were really excited about this. So work began on the downtown mall in 1966 and was completed in 1967. And funding came from building owners of the downtown area, city revenues, and some federal aid. And the vision of the forward-thinking business people at the time has created this unique shopping experience in historic downtown Camas today. And it's really got to be said that the Downtown Camas Association and the downtown merchants, they continue to work on making improvements and furthering the beauty and the function of downtown Camas. It's even said that the trees that were planted were supposed to be miniature, quote miniature, but they ended up being much larger shade trees and much more beautiful than it had been expected or planned for. And then the final piece of history we really need to talk about before we talk about some of the buildings, again, comes from Renee Carroll Johnston's work. And I'm going to quote this in whole from her. She said, quote, "Not only was Nan Henriksen the first woman mayor of Camas, her vision and planning prepared the city for positive growth and economic strength. Her term of office ran from 1983 to 1992. One of her proudest accomplishments was the creation of the Light Industrial Park in West Camas, anchored by such companies as Sharp, Underwriters, Laboratories, and the park was seen initially as a gamble, but paired well with the thriving and inventive downtown Camas, bringing new industry jobs to the area. And she worked in the downtown Camas area and beyond and did incredible work. And in 2006, she was named Political Leader of the Century by the Camas-Washougal Chamber of Commerce. And in 2018, Northwest Nan Henriksen Way was named in her honor. And so with that really is a really quick and doesn't necessarily capture everything history of the city itself. So now that we've told you this history, before we close out, we want to talk about a few of the buildings. So although modernization was the key, again, with this forward progress, again, like we said, the historic nature of Camas was really important, and many of the historic buildings are still there. And we actually are going to be doing a walking tour, virtual walking tour of downtown Camas. So we're not going to give you too many of those buildings right now, but we're going to talk about some of the important figures and just a few of these buildings that are down there. So John Roffler is really one that's important. John Roffler was an accomplished carpenter and builder who built many of the distinctive homes in the Camas area, including the Piddock Ledbetter house. His house at 1437 Northeast Everett was built in 1906, and it is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Roffler was also well known for his Roffler block, a distinctive concrete block used in the walls and foundations of the buildings that he constructed. Also, currently, Camas Antiques building, which was built in 1924 for Charlie and Rose Farrell, and was designed by Roffler, is one of those places where you can best see in Clark County that trademark Roffler block, that work that you can see there on the building. So Roffler's story, particularly, he came to Camas from Minnesota in 1889 at the age of 10, and he became interested in design and construction after working on Lakeside, a large local estate. And by 1911, he was responsible for 54 homes built in 55 months. It is likely that he built more than 100 homes in his brief lifetime. He actually passed away in 1924 at the age of 45. So another really important downtown building that is pretty prominent is the Stoller Building, Stoller Building 1. And this sits on 4th Avenue, and it's the home of Lily Atelier. The building was built in 1929 by Robert Stoller, who was a key figure in developing downtown in the 1920s. Now, this building has a heavy Art Deco influence, and it's typical of the 1920s and 30s with terracotta tiles and accents with a belt of brick around it. And what we know is Hunter's Hardware occupied this space for a period of time. The building across from Camas Antiques, where Journey Church is now, is also another building that was built by Stoller in 1935. And that site had been the original wooden Camas Hotel before it was torn down to build the current building that is there now. And that building, when it was constructed in 1935, actually housed the J.C. Penney's until the 1980s in Camas. Now, across the street from that building, we have the Farrell Building. So Charles Farrell came to Camas in 1891 when he was 22 years old, and he worked for the mill for 12 years. And he was the first registered voter, it's noted, in Camas, and was a city councilman for many years. And he and his family served their community for decades as merchants and civic leaders. And in 1903, Farrell and his wife, Rose, bought the Glen Rank General Store, which was built in 1887 at the corner of what is now 4th and Birch, and opened the C.E. Farrell General Merchandising Company. And the Farrell General Merchandising Company had clothing, hardware, groceries, gifts, millinery, and Rose's specialty was the finer things that she could do. And she added quality merchandise to the store. And she created a strong following for her hat designs and provided Camas with an upscale place to shop. And in 1924, Farrell ended up tearing down the old wood building and built this stone building that stands today. And it was one that was designed by Rose's brother, John Roffler, using Roffler block and a specialty cast stone like we talked about. And it had a retail space on the first level and had 6 apartments and a doctor's office and a dentist's office on the second floor. And Farrell spared no expense in making this building attractive, sophisticated, and modern. The retail tenant for the first 10 years of this new building was actually the J.C. Penney's. And what happened is eventually it was stolen by the new building across the street. And in 1927, Charles actually helped build the Granada Theater, which now is the Liberty, another major contribution to downtown Camas. And in 1928, Rose Farrell, who had continued to make and sell hats from her home, and her sister, Anna Eddy, opened the Fashionette, a hat shop in part of the Granada Theater building. And in 1935, Penny's moved across the street and the Fashionette moved back moved into the corner building and became the exclusive women's clothing store in the area. And men's fashions were added in 1942, and in 1945, the store was renamed Farrell and Eddie, which many people probably remember. And Rose and Anna both worked in the store until they were well over 80 years old. And Charlie and Rose's son, Clayton and Glenn, also worked in the family business for a number of years. And Farrell and Eddie actually closed its doors forever in 1998 after 53 years of service in the community. And the current Camas Antiques opened in 2004 and added a unique mix of old and new to the shopping options of today's downtown Camas. And 8 updated apartments are on the second level. And this building is on the Clark County and National Historic Registers. So another important building built in 1927 is the Liberty Theater. And this one is an incredible theater when you can see all of this wonderful architecture. And it says architect P.M. Hall Lewis of Portland designed the theater, while Charles Anneman designed the interior and the entryway of this theater. And it is an example of what is called kind of an Art Deco style with Spanish influences. And the Granada Theater opened its doors, like I said, in 1927, and it was built by Charles Farrell with additional financing by local Camas business groups for about $75,000. And admission was 30 cents for adults, 10 cents for children. And they spared no expense making this theater grand. The Post Record called the theater, called the interior a dreamland of beauty. And they took every measure to ensure the attention of detail and design in the artistic touches. And an old custom for early theaters was a banner running across the street, and the Granada banner was up for about 10 years and was replaced by the Liberty banner in 1938. And in 1962, the Columbus Day storm broke the banner free from its supports, and it had to be taken down. Now, in 1938, the theater was under new management, and that's when it was renamed the Liberty. And the theater has had many owners over the years. One of the longest was George Stoller of Camas, owned it for many years, and he owned the theater for about 20 years, from about 1956 to 1978. And he also opened the AutoView Drive-In Theater on the east side of Prune Hill in 1956. Fire did gut the theater in 1994, but the Farrell family, who still owned it, completely refurbished the Liberty and maintained its historic feel at that time. And it operated as a first-run movie theater until about September 2009, and then it reopened in March of 2011. And when it was constructed, the Granada was a single-screen theater with 800 seats. And when the Liberty reopened in 2011, one of the renovations was to add a smaller second screen. And so now the Liberty's main auditorium seats about 348 people, while the second, the Granada seats seat about 29. And we are just lucky to continue to have the Liberty Theater in Camas, which shows many, many wonderful films. And we're very thankful. So again, tonight, as I'm talking, and we're talking about this theater, if it's possible for you to be able to support the theater, that would be fantastic, because we want to make sure we help them out. And we were really hoping to have this event and program at the theater itself. And the last building I'll talk about is the Camas Hotel. So built in 1911, the Camas Hotel is the oldest commercial building in Camas, surviving the town-wide fire of 1923. In its early days, it was described as being modern in every respect. It was originally called the Commercial Hotel because the name Camas Hotel was already taken by the hotel down the street, and that was the same spot where Journey Community Church now stands today. And when the original Camas Hotel closed, the Commercial Hotel changed its name to the Camas Hotel. And it was built in 1911 by Paul Hines. And the hotel was originally named the Commercial because, again, that name had already been taken. And Hines was known as a strict man who raised his 3 children in the hotel after his wife had passed away at a young age. And it's just been a mainstay of that, of the downtown area for many, many years. So those buildings are the main buildings that we're mentioning tonight. But if you want to know more, we will be taking a virtual walking tour on August 7th at noon. So you'll want to join us for that. And we're going to have one or two or possibly more special guests joining us for that virtual walk. So we really would love to have you come and join us. And with that, that is our Celebrate Main Street program for this year. We are really glad to work with the Downtown Camas Association on this program. We can't thank them enough for their support for this and all their help talking with folks. And then again, we want to thank Wager Audio for helping make this digital feed possible, and then the Historic Preservation Commission for years and years and years of support of this program. And so if you enjoyed this program tonight, please like our page on Facebook or visit our website. And yeah, anything you can do to engage with us during this time, we really appreciate. And again, thank you for hanging out with us tonight to be able to talk about the wonderful history of historic downtown Camas.
She's watching the box, got magic in her fingertips. Keep it here in your mind, let it burn, some shivers up and down your spine, spine, spine. Travel there, sacred choice. Sand in your hair, the waves they crash upon your thighs. Reeds they bend, bow their heads. Golden black, got pieces of a different world. Shake your head, makes no sense. From where you stand, you hold them all in your hand, 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 you hold them all in your listen deep to the glow. See a smile, the brightest note you ever known. In the ditch, found your path. Climbing still, the wreckage all around.